How good can SMU be in 2026? 1 year after a season that was completely up and down throughout the entirety of the year. Another 9-win season under SMU, and the Rhett Lashley era continues in 2026. It wasn't that long ago when SMU wasn't just another doormat before moving from the American Conference to the ACC. Now, in the span of 10 years, SMU has went from another laughing stock of college football, a team that would never return to its former glory in the 80s, to now they are in the position to where they can be a consistent contender for an ACC championship and maybe more as the future continues, as long as Rhett Lashley remains in Dallas at SMU. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. This is another one of our sleeper series on the SMU Mustangs. Make sure you all do us a favor, though. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, post a new video, or post a new short here on the Southern Sports Theme. Every live show brought to you by our good friends at FrostBuddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com, use our promo code SSS15 to get 15% off your first purchase. That's code SSS15 to get 15% off of all cups, mugs, tumblers, whatever it is that you need to get your day started. Also, thank you to our friends at Chike Nutrition. With 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, and 1 gram of sugar, you can get every day started with a good, hearty, healthy cup of coffee with our friends at Chike Nutrition. Click the link below. Get yourself 10% off. SMU is going to have to replace a lot. Let's just be honest. But you have 30 guys that graduated. 24 have entered the transfer portal. There's a lot of guys that entered the draft. But this past offseason, you were able to sign a top 25 recruiting class. The transfer portal comes in, and I thought that you got some guys that can provide depth at the end of the day. But before we get into the portal, I want to talk about what this team looks like coming back with some guys that decided to come back from last year's team. Obviously, it starts with the quarterback position, and that's Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings has been the starter for the last 2 years, and I thought last year one of his biggest issues was obviously the turnovers. Not to mention that I think his running ability kind of wasn't as good as what we saw this past year. I thought he could have been on track for a much better season than what we initially saw. They're a win away from going to play in the ACC Championship game this past year. And he has played really well. No question about it. But you have a guy that played through an ankle injury this past year, but yet he still played fairly decent through the most part. I think if he's fully healthy, he can be the best quarterback in the ACC. I know Darian Mensah currently has that at the moment, but make no mistake about it. I think we're seriously sleeping on Kevin Jennings in the ACC, or at least we forgot about how good of a quarterback that he can be. If he doesn't have that ankle injury, he's running the football more than 70 times. If he doesn't have that ankle injury, his feet can create damage for any team in the ACC. Any defense is not going to be able to shut him down. Make no mistake about that. Just being honest with you. He's going to look really damn good. It sucks that all three of your leading tight ends are gone. The running back room is going to be bad for the most part. You're going to lose TJ Harden. You're going to lose Shadiq Clayton-Johnson, both of which have completed their last year of eligibility. Chris Johnson Jr., who had a pretty good first year as a Mustang, he decided to enter the transfer portal. He's now at Clemson. You'd have wished he'd have came back for this past year because he provides – he was going to be your number one guy. Make no mistake about that. So let's see what happens as the next two backs come in. Jermaico Green is going to be one of your guys at the running back room. Was a former top 300 prospect in the country back in 2025. You look at where they are from a running back standpoint, and it's not as good as you'd like to see. You got Kendrick Raphael from Cal, who I think has a lot of potential. 100-yard, near 1,000-yard back this past year. I do expect him to take the bulk of the carries in 2026. I think Derek McFall is going to be that number 2 guy that's going to get a little bit of playing time. He's going to provide a little bit of a spark from here and there. Offensive line is going to be really good, man. I think that this was one of the deepest offensive lines in the ACC this past year. You lose guys like Savion Byrd and Logan Parr, who's gone. You bring back 2 returning starters. You have a guy in P.J. Williams that missed just 1 game. Drummond Odoms and Andrew Chamblee are going to be playing that left side of the offensive line unless they decide to make changes. If they did in spring practice, you guys can obviously provide that. Defensively, I think from a receiver standpoint too, I think you got guys. And I think that you have dudes that you can rely on at the end of the day. We mentioned how the tight end room took a big hit. That was a big point of emphasis for you in the transfer portal, and you got guys. You got Theo Malin Ostrom, who's a Texas A&M transfer, and you got Randy Pittman from Florida State. Both guys, you have a blocking tight end, and you have a guy that can slip out into the red zone, and Randy Pittman, and can be your receiving tight end. Yannick Smith, though, from East Carolina. And you're going to say, well, he's from East Carolina. What's so great about it? Guys, you got to think about the type of offense that he was in. It was so spread out throughout the entirety of the year. And I wish that Yannick Smith would have played in the bowl game. Obviously, that wasn't going to be the case because of him already entering the portal before the bowl season even started for all of college football. But Yannick Smith is a big body. He's a very strong tight end. 6'3". They list him as 190 pounds. I think he's probably 207. If I'm going to be honest with you, he just doesn't look like he's 190 pounds. He's big. He's a big dude. You know, and that's what people are going to notice a lot about him is his strength after catching the football and how good of a wide receiver that he can be. I think there's a lot of people that are going to hype him up this time next year. Guys, I really think that he is a special talent. I watched him closely whenever he was at ECU. How he fit into the J.D. Baker offense and what they did, they created playmakers for that offense to function well. And it worked out really, really well. Make no mistake about it. Blake Harrell did a really good job in hiring, and he did a really good job with recruiting whenever he took over in 2024. And you add a guy like Yannick Smith that's going to be your number 1 receiver this coming year. You better bet about how good of an athlete that this kid is going to be. I think that this SMU team, they lose a good bit of depth at the skill position. Guys, they were able to reload brilliantly and beautifully in the offseason. I think they did a really good job of doing that through high school recruiting and through the portal. They did a really, really damn good job. Here's where things get a little interesting. All 4 starting defensive linemen from last year are done. 6 of the 8 leading tacklers are done. Jeffrey Mba, Terry Webb, Isaiah Smith, Cam Robertson are gone. Sucks. So that was a big, big point of emphasis. You do get guys like Marcellus Barnes and William Nettles who showed a lot of improvement as the season progressed. You bring in Jarvis Lee, who was incredible at USF. I think he was really solid in his time at USF. I think it was very, very rare that you saw guys be able to get a beat on a guy like him. He just always found a way to be in the right place at the right time. What's even better about him is that you send him off the edge and he's going to make plays. Excellent scraper, guy that can get underneath receivers and makes plays in the run game. It's very important that you got guys like him. You have other guys that you got from the portal that can be pretty solid options. Malcolm Alcorn Crowder is going to be a guy that's going to plug the middle, 6'6", 305 pounds, pretty athletic for his size. You also brought in Marquez White, who had a phenomenal year at a bad school at like UMass. And for what he was able to do, even though the stats are going to say, well, 50 tackles, 5 sacks, not really much going on there, he was really, really good. Really, really a solid player. And he's had an interesting career himself. So let's see what he's able to do through the portal, formerly at Dartmouth, then transferred to McNeese, then UMass, and now at SMU. Marquez White is going to be a star for SMU in the making when he gets time. Javen Thomas is going to provide depth, former 4-star coming out of high school. Ira Singleton from USF as well is a guy that played more of a B-backer at USF. So basically he was kind of a rover linebacker, still say. Thought he had a pretty solid season this past year. When you utilize him properly, he is going to be all over the field. And I think that he has that capability when he gets into the lineup. The thing about it is that how do you balance him in what this Maurice Crum defense is going to look like? Look, this is a defense that last year, this was one of the best defenses in all of the ACC this past year. This wasn't a slouch defense. Were there times where they underperformed during the last couple minutes of a game? Yes. But I think that the expectations should not change for what SMU brings back from a defensive standpoint in 2026. I really do think that they're going to be really, really, really stout in that part of the area. When you look at their schedule, it's probably one of the more favorable schedules in college football in the ACC at this point. Here, however, I will say this. There are some games that you could trip up. At Florida State, first game of the season. We know what is going to happen at the end of the year if Mike Norvell can't put it together. So that's obviously a must-win game for them. At Louisville. Louisville brings back a lot. You bring back a healthy Isaac Brown. You have a quarterback that I think can break out in Lincoln Kienholz. Let's see what they look like from a defensive standpoint. That could turn into a barn burner. You end up playing Virginia at home. Virginia's coming off of a phenomenal season. How does Virginia respond after an 11-win season in 2025? One of the best seasons in school history. You go play a Cal team that should be a sleeper in the ACC. Virginia Tech at home, first year under James Franklin. What does Notre Dame look like? They go to Indiana to go play Notre Dame. That's probably the game where I think is going to attract a lot of attention for a lot of people. That game could be a big difference between SMU if they have 2 losses. Let's say they lose to Florida State or to Louisville early on in the season. They drop one against Virginia Tech or against Virginia. That's a big, or well, I should say, if they have that one loss going to Louisville, that Notre Dame game could be pivotal. It could be very pivotal. I don't think that they're going to get shut out of the ACC Championship. We'll see what happens with what Miami does. But let's say they lose that football game. Now you're sitting at them with 2 losses on the year. Could they potentially get shut out of the 12-team playoff? It happened last year. Could an ACC team get shut out again if that's the case? We'll just have to see. It all depends on what happens in the ACC Championship as well. Let's say Miami goes into that scenario undefeated and Louisville ends up with just 1 loss on the season and they pull off an upset. Now what happens with Miami? What happens to SMU? Do you have 3 ACC teams in the 12 team? Again, that's why I say that Notre Dame game could be very critical for SMU at the end of the year. If you have that win, and even though if you get shut out of the ACC Championship, you have a quality win with you, that puts you in a good position to be in the college football playoff. Easy schedule, but do they have the dudes that they can replace from last year to create success for them in 2026? We'll find out. Guys, thank you once again for hopping on into our sleeper series on the SMU Mustangs. Make sure you all do us a favor. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short. And as always, stay blessed. Don't stress. Y'all have a good week.